pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is Morrison, and we're just having a little get-together for to introduce the candidates to sheriff. And after they get done, there'll be time for question and answer. So we're going to let everyone have, we agree, about 7 minutes. And everybody do what they want. We don't want any personal attacks or anything like that as far as, just keep it friendly. I'm going to have Naomi pick a name out of here for who will be first. And then we'll just go on down the line.
Tom Jester.
Okay, Tom, you're on the floor.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for inviting us tonight, all four of us. It's a great time for us to be able to come out and get a chance to meet the public. I'm Tom Justin. I'm either overdressed or they're underdressed. I don't know which for sure yet, but this is the professional side of the dress code. I'm a lieutenant with the St. Cloud Police Department currently. I'm at 28 years of total law enforcement experience, 26 with the city of St. Cloud, and since 1997, which would be about 17 years, I sit in a command position as a lieutenant. By that I mean simply that I oversee a budget of about $10 million, 100 officers, and about 50 civilians. My law enforcement career is extensive, but pre-law enforcement, of course, I was born and raised in Royalton. I am from the county, trust me. I spent my time at Royalton High School, and when I graduated, I enlisted in the United States Army, where I was an active duty combat MP. After I got out of the service, I immediately started my schooling at Alexandria Technical College, my associate's degree in law enforcement. Was hired about 3 months after I left school with the St. Stephen Police Department, a little town by Sartell, and about 6 months later started with St. Cloud, and I've been there ever since. In law enforcement, there's very little across the law enforcement facet or discipline that I haven't done within my career, and I'm ready for the challenge and the opportunity at sheriff. My vision for the county is listed on a flyer that you'll all get, and there's a letter being handed out, so unless you want me to, I really don't want to talk deep about credentials unless you ask, other than to say I'm very confident in my ability to do the position. What I would like to talk about is a few other things. One, I've spent about 8 years now on the Royalton School Board as an elected official, so I understand the politics that come with an elected office. 5 of the 8 years I spent as chair. Some of the initiatives we did when I entered the board on Royalton was to open enrollment and take a dying district to what I call a thriving district. That took a board and it took the community to support it. That's one of the facets that I do within law enforcement that I'm well known for across the state, is bringing people together in the public safety arena and having them all play in the sandbox very well. I like to sit down at the table, have discussions, discuss solutions to problems, come up with an agreement or a consensus, and move forward. However, I'm not afraid in being in a position of authority or a command where you have to make a decision and you have to make it today. I've spent, like I said, about 17 years making command decisions in law enforcement. I've overseen the criminal investigation unit, which was gangs, drugs, the narcotics task force, the crime lab. I've overseen the patrol operations, which is the 70-some sworn officers that drive around in squad cars and handle the first 911 calls for service. Realized that my law enforcement experience on the extensive part also led to my project management skills being recognized. When President George Bush came to St. Cloud, I was in charge of the operation. When the Blue Angels Air Show came to St. Cloud, I was one of the people in charge of the operation. So big events of that magnitude or big natural disasters of the same or similar magnitude don't concern me from a perspective of being to lead the direction to get things done. Beyond that, on the personal side, After being born and raised in Royalton, I married my wife Heidi, who's the lady back there in the white shirt. Say hi, Heidi.
Hi.
We have 4 children. My children are not here tonight because 3 of them are either at college or working, 25, 23, and 21, and then we were blessed with an 8-year-old. My 8-year-old son, or our 8-year-old son, is a special needs child, so I understand the additional time and effort it takes to deal with certain facets or members of the public that have special needs. How are they doing on time?
You are at 4 minutes. You have 3 minutes left.
How about if I do this? What I would point out while I have opening comments here is I actually brought copies of my law enforcement resume. And why I brought that is because, I'll be quite frank, there's too much extensive stuff in my background to be able to get it on a postcard. I would encourage any of you that want to take a look at my credentials to take a look at my resume, and I provided you with a letter on what I stand for. With that said, the last part I'll cover is where I see the vision of the Sheriff's Office going. One of the things I'd like to get done immediately in the first term is the completion of the 911 system. The next generation 911 system is critical to response times for not just law enforcement, but public safety as a whole. Second, especially after traveling now, I've been in 29 townships, and I've met with all 29 township boards. There are 30 townships in Morrison County. The only one I haven't been at yet is Morrill Township. I can't make that till the day of the primary, so it could be a conflict. But I clearly also heard that the relationship between the Sheriff's Office and the citizens of Morrison County needs to be improved, needs to be enhanced, and where outreach needs to be done. And it's one of my strong suits. I've done it for 26 years in St. Paul. Beyond that, I made it pretty clear that I am interested in complete a countywide public safety plan. There's not one completed in Morrison County. There never has been. We can talk more in depth about it with your questions if you ask, but there needs to be in today's day and age a countywide safety plan in Morrison County. And then I focus on the youth. I've made it clear my ultimate goal would be to put an officer in every school in the county as sheriff. And that doesn't mean it has to be a deputy. And it doesn't mean that it has to bankrupt the budget. But for Eric, who wants to spend some time or additional time in Piers, there's no reason that a sheriff's deputy can't be around the Piers area handling priority calls for service, reprioritized resource time to allow Eric to spend more time in school. The school district that really needs a committed effort today is Farmville and Upslope, because all the other schools in the county have at least an officer attending to the school, attending to the school part-time. But my ultimate focus is on the youth and the mentoring of the youth. Remember, about 50% of the kids today are either single-parent family or close
30 seconds.
to single-parent families. So the ultimate vision and outreach for law enforcement has to be to mentor them when they're young. Our goal ultimately, and when I say it, people don't like it, but I say it this way, I like to get to the kids before they become criminals. That's the ultimate goal, is to reach out and get to that generation and convince them to make better decisions. And with that, thank you, and I'll take any questions you have tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Morrison.
I'm Sean Morrison. I'll echo Mr. Justin's comments. Thanks for having us here tonight and being able to talk with you about ourselves. To begin with, I grew up in Two Rivers Township. I attended high school at Upsall area schools. Once I graduated, I attended the United States Marine Corps, went into the reserves. I have 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserve and 6 years in the Guards, so 12 years total military service. No longer in the military now. When I got back from the Marine Corps, I basically started working construction and working for my father, Denny's Bobcat Backhoe, which was he was self-employed with a septic system business. Basically, I started in 1999 at the Sheriff's Office. Paul Cheetah hired me. He hired me as a 911 dispatcher. Once I did that, I started part-time 911 dispatching. I worked up in the jail as a correctional officer. I worked up in the court as a court bailiff. I worked water patrol, and I also worked as a deputy part-time. In 2002, Paul Cheetah hired me full-time as a deputy. I continued in that capacity until Mikkel Wetzel, our current sheriff, took over in 2003. Once in 2003, I remained a full-time deputy until 2005. January 2005, I was assigned to the Central Minnesota Drug and Gang Task Force, currently called Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force. So I did that for a year and a half, investigating felony-level narcotic crimes. My current position at the Sheriff's Office, I'm the patrol sergeant. I work primarily afternoons and nights. I'm the supervisor of the deputies. I'm also the lead firearms instructor, use of force instructor, taser instructor, and ground fighting instructor. I also am the commander of our CERT team. CERT stands for Critical Incident Response Team, also known as SWAT team. As far as what my vision is, there's a couple things. I've been part of the current administration for the last 8 to the 15 years. So a lot of people say, what would you change? And the answer is, you know what? I think things are going good, but there are some positive changes that can be made. One of them is getting involved with our schools early on. I have a belief that we need to get involved with our schools. There's a lot of things that we can do to be proactive. So what I've done is I met with school officials. I met with school officials saying, hey, what can we do for you guys? And basically what I want to do is come up with a curriculum, and we'll do whatever you guys want from us that we can provide. Some of the things that got brought up was drug education. Other things were snowmobile ATV patrol. Other things were current trends. What are some of the current trends going on? Teenagers get in a lot of accidents because they're texting and driving. So those are some of the things that school officials want us to address. Now, what's my plan? Well, my plan is this. I want to be able to commit deputy to the schools that don't have any municipal police departments. You have Motley, you have Randall, you have Piers, you have Royalton. They all have municipal police departments. I'd like to be able to assist them in any fashion needed. If they need help or they want one of our guys to go in and talk to their schools, we'll help them. I'm also available if I was fortunate to get sheriff, where we do the same thing, just help them out in any capacity. However, Mr. Justin noted this earlier, Swanville and Upsala, they do not have anybody in their schools. So I've talked to those school officials, and I told them that I would dedicate a deputy 1 day a week. And why 1 day a week? Well, number one, you have to make it work with your budget. And 1 day a week, we can do that without going outside the parameters of our budget. The other thing is, as far as educating the kids, is they brought up the fact that, well, what would you do if we're all caught up and there was nothing to be taught for that week? And I looked at them and I said, well, we would interact with the kids. Because interaction is good, and that's what they need. So if it's gym time and we're playing basketball with them or playing kickball, whatever it is, we'll do that. We'll interact with the kids. The other thing is, if it's lunchtime and they're sitting down at lunch, we'll eat with the kids. We want these kids to know that we're more than just peace officers. We're actually human beings behind the badge. And the thing is we need to earn their trust early on. I'm sure these guys would agree, as peace officers, I don't know how many kids you run into, they're scared of you. No one wants to really talk to you because they don't know you that well. And that's an image I think we need to change. So that's somewhat of my plan as far as getting involved in the schools. The other thing is being a little bit more aggressive with drugs. How do we do that? Well, right now, we do a pretty decent job with drugs, but everybody knows it continues to be a problem, specifically in our community. Right now, as a supervisor and the patrol sergeant of the sheriff's office, we have to do evaluations on all the deputies. That's my job. We're looking at basically things like how many property watches are being checked, how many paper services are being served. We keep looking at things like that. We got guys that are really good at drug interdiction. The problem is they're taking drugs out of vehicles, drugs off the streets, but they're also trying to do their other duties. What I want to do is let these guys that are really good at drug education get more involved and continue to be involved so we get more drugs off the streets, which means we need to revamp our evaluation process. And we need to send our deputies to more training so they can get more skilled and more comfortable with drug education. Other than that, I got a wife, 3 girls. My wife works at the Little Falls High School, my girls attend school in Lincoln and Little Falls. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Rushlow.
Hello, my name is Dan Rushlow. Also, I'd like to thank you guys for inviting us out this evening. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Platte Township, born and raised on a family farm there, and I attended Pierce High School, and I graduated in 1993. After high school, I continued on to Brennan Community College for my law enforcement degree, and in 95 I graduated, continued on to Hillman Community College to get my skills portion completed. Directly out of college, I did not go into law enforcement right away. I went into farming actually with my father-in-law, John Harold, and I did that for about 4 years. And during that time, the 4 years that I was out of it, I got myself involved in a lot of things out in Pierce. Just a little bit about what I do out there. 21 years I've been a first responder out there, volunteered. 12 years I have been on the fire department. I'm a member of the Pierce Lions, member of the Harding Latchford Snow Dusters. I'm a director on that board. Involved in the Holy Trinity and Pierce School District Safety Board, and I'm a Knight of Columbus, and I belong to the St. Joseph's Church of Pierce. So as I was doing all that, in '98, Steve Bozer was the chief, and he hired me part-time in the city of Pierce as a patrolman. I worked there as a part-time patrolman for about 4 years, and in 2002 I was hired by Sheriff Chief at the Sheriff's Department as a deputy. I've been working there ever since. Currently, I am the senior canine handler. I've been doing that for 9 years. I'm on my second dog right now, Benny. And I would say that's one of the best jobs you could have actually at the Sheriff's Department. So if I were elected sheriff, it would be tough for me to give that up, but it's something I would have to do. Just like Sean, we both worked there pretty close to the same amount of time. We've all done almost the same things. I've been involved in water patrol, transports, bailiff, and some snow patrol. So I've been involved in a lot of things at the Sheriff's Department. A few things, my visions for the county, I think every week, the first thing is narcotics. Every week when you open the record, open it up, it's not a page, it's a page and a half in the crime report of drug charges, if not drugs that's related to theft, which goes back to people on meth and heroin. So, excuse me. It's a very serious problem, I think, in the county, and it's something I think we need to be more proactive at. One vision that I would have at the county would be to get back to the way it was. About 4 years ago, there was 2 people assigned to the drug task force they're talking about, Central Minnesota Violent Offenders Task Force. For some reason, they rolled one of them off and put them into the regular patrol schedule. So currently, there's only 1 person assigned to that task force. I feel that it's getting out of hand, and we need to get it back to the way it was. And I think we need to get 2 people back on there, if not more, if the money would allow. But to get 1 more back on, it won't cost the county anything, and we could revamp the schedule to make it work. Second thing that's also very near and dear to my heart is the youth. I'm actually involved in one thing out in Pierce at the Holy Trinity School. It's the Healthy Living and Choices program. It's an 8-week program where we actually go into the schools. It's law enforcement, public health, and community corrections. It's where you go in and actually be interactive with the kids and just try to teach them to make healthy choices throughout their life. And it's kind of fun for the kids. On the last day, we do a big kind of a fun day, do a demo where I come in with the dog and my partner, and they do some things with the CERT team. So it not only teaches them to make good choices, but it gets kids involved, like Sean said, with the law enforcement, not to be scared of them. And the second thing that has been started out in Pierce, Chief Hannigan, they call it a satellite office. It's where the school gave him just a small little office. He put a computer in there, and the school gave him keys, me keys, and the deputies keys if they wanted. So you can come and go as you want, whenever you want, throughout the day, and you can come in, do your reports, do whatever you want on the computer, then you can go out and mingle with the kids. I too don't want kids to be scared of us. I want them to think that cops are actually human, because we are, and I don't want them to come up and be scared of them. I want them to come up and say, hey man, how you doing, stuff like that. If you get that rapport with the kids, I feel that when you're in the school, maybe we'll come up and say, hey, Chuck's selling dope at the corner, or this or that, so. No, but it's just to get the kids to feel that you are human, and to get them maybe a little more. Those are a couple of major issues. Also, the third thing would be technology. We got a great program there at LETG, but there's a few things I think that we could implement to make it a little bit easier, not only for dispatch, but also for the deputies and also up in the jail. So those are a few things that I feel that I could do. One of the things I think I actually would bring to this office would be a lot of common sense. I grew up a farmer, and I still actively farm, do a little livestock, some crops. So I think we all know out in the real world, farming brings a lot of common sense. You have to make common sense decisions, and you don't have to actually read a book sometimes to make a decision. You got to make the decision on the go. So I would appreciate your support. Always go.
Thank you. Carl Strauss.
It wasn't that. I again want to thank you all very much for coming and supporting us and letting us speak what some of our beliefs are. And like some of the gentlemen have said, you can't say it all here in a matter of 7 minutes, but to tell you a little bit about myself first. I'm married to Shayla. I have 4 children and I have 1 granddaughter. One of my kids is graduated from college and living in Mankato. My daughter, living in Rochester. My daughter's a senior in college in Mankato. My boy just graduated from high school in Little Falls. And my last son is in the 8th grade at the Little Falls Middle School. I grew up in Randall, Minnesota for 18 years of my life, and at that time I moved to Little Falls, where I attended St. Cloud State University and got my 4-year degree in criminal justice. I went on to Alec Tech, where I got my police skills and license to be a police officer. And I too didn't enter the ranks of the police department right away. Currently, there are a lot of people applying for the jobs, and it was hard to get a police job right out of college. So I worked construction, I worked for land work, heavy moving and pipeline, and laying pipe in the streets for almost 6 years, five full years and a little bit before I got my part-time job in Little Falls. It's funny, I talked to the mayor 27 years ago. We were doing the special deputy program in Morrison County, and this is my Hillman right here. It was my first job, and I come in as a special deputy without a gun. And if I remember back that many years ago, there were quite a few fights all around the bars. And I tried my best just not to get my butt kicked out here. But getting back to a little bit of my experience, I was trained a police officer then in '98. And got a canine like Dan did. I got a canine. I still have a narcotics canine. I don't have a bite dog. It's just for sniffing narcotics. In 2005, I became a sergeant and was for 9 years and was assigned to the task force, where I am currently still assigned. I am a detective investigator now. And in 2010, I became the Randall Police Chief. They were looking for a part-time officer, and they looked it up at the state. The state thought that they should have a chief, and so they hired me as a police chief in 2010. So I give them approximately about 20 hours a week, along with working on the Minnesota Violence and Task Force. So I keep busy, but I love law enforcement. I've been pretty dedicated to it. I also own a business I've done a storage business in Little Falls, and I have been doing that since 2005. Some of my elected leadership, I'm a board member for the Minnesota State Association of Narcotics Investigators. I am the president of the Little Falls Youth Baseball Association, and I'm also a coach for my son's team. Tomorrow we leave for the cities again for another state tournament. So I know I haven't visited all the communities yet. Baseball is still pretty important, and my kid is pretty important to me. He's a left-handed pitcher, so I got to give him some attention. So that's a little bit about me. A little bit of one thing I forgot to say is I've been a firefighter too for 18 years for the city of Little Falls. So trying to be well-rounded within the community and keep a little bit of doing a little bit of everything. I run a budget with my business. I run a budget in Randall, and of course run a budget in the house. So I think we're all probably familiar with budgets, but some of the big things I'd like to see, and I know some of the guys that said some of their stuff, and I don't want to double up what they say, but get one of the guys that said get kids to like police. One of the things we see is even with firefighters, and we need to get into the schools. I go into the schools as a firefighter with all the gear on, and we're scary. We're breathing out of these masks, and kids are going to hide from us. It's kind of the same way with police. What I'd like to see is, I know we'd all like to have play as an officer in the schools. Again, we can't offer everybody roses and palm trees because sometimes the budget isn't going to permit it. But we do walkthroughs at bars at night, me included in Randall. Why not have a guy go walk through the school all for a day? And so that's what I'd like to see. And so you build a rapport with the students. right off the bat, get them to like police. I think that's a big thing. The other thing is DARE program. I'd like to see the DARE program come back. I'd like to see it in the 7th grade. We in the drug task force and have been there long enough to know that is the level and the age that the kids start experimenting. The peer pressure is there. I really believe we have to get, like Mr. Justin had said, reach the kids before they get into the crime. And 7th and 8th grade is that time, and I really believe the DARE program can be that program to reach them. One more thing, I do belong to the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association. I believe the sheriff has got to help keep our county sovereign, that we don't have the government taking land, the government bringing in medical marijuana if we don't want it in our county, or drugs for that matter, or like what's happening across the border. They're busing these kids into counties all over the United States. And we need a sheriff to stand up and take on some constitutional issues and be right with the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. Now we'll open it up to any questions. Whoever has a question, just stand up. One person talking at a time. Anyone have any questions? Now's the time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. All four of you mentioned about one of your priorities is going to the schools with the youth. I have a 17-year-old son who goes to Little Falls High School. He's a good student, never in trouble, straight A's. And he comes home and tells me some stories about kids who he knows does drugs, he knows does bad things, but, and I'll just be blunt, is a friend of the sheriff. His family's a friend of the sheriff, so he's never going to get in any trouble. So what is your reaction to that? And how do you think, obviously we all have, family and friends, but how do you handle situations like that? Because it's known among some kids in Little Falls High School. I don't know about other areas schools, but I guess I'd like a short answer. Can I have a short answer from anybody, or how do you want to do it?
You can pick one out.
I can pick, well, I'll start with Sean.
Okay.
Oh, I don't mean to pick on you.
So I'm just going to recap your question. You have a teenager in high school. He knows there's kids who are doing drugs, but at at the same token, these kids who are doing drugs may know the sheriff or his family members.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, being the sheriff, number one, you gotta be fair and you have to be impartial. Number one is you get all this, no matter what it is, it doesn't matter if it's your family members or not, you have to treat it as, as it is, like it's important, which it is in this case. So, that being said, if I feel as a sheriff that, you know what, this is something where this puts me in a bad position, then you have to be man enough to step aside and hand it off to somebody else. So, I guess what I'm saying is, if you can't handle things fair, then you need to hand it off to somebody who will do a better job because it may be a conflict for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I just don't think it's being done right now. But, it's not for me to investigate. So I
And when I-
talked to the parents and
Okay.
it's just there's a common denominator.
I just think no matter who's in that position, you have to be fair about it. And that means that you're going to give it the same amount of weight as any other people might, which means you're going to investigate it and look into it in its entirety and do what you can. Because if it's a criminal offense, that's our job. So,
Ron, I think we all know drugs is a big problem, whatever, because we've all, in the past, we've had people here, we've all tried to do it. But with the police officer in our school system, our children have to go to Malacca, and there's been a police officer in that school for a number of years. On statistical why, how do the ones that have a police officer in school, how do they stack up along with schools that do not? If you were mentioning putting them in all schools, I'm not against it. I'm just asking a question because everything has to be looked at in dollars and cents, and safety is not $50 a cent of education. So what do you, anything about it?
Well, I don't know the actual percentage, but what I was talking about is not actually putting one in it. It's actually just just giving them a room and put a computer, and then the people that are, the deputies that are actually on patrol at the time, they could stop and go in, use that office, walk around. If they get a call, of course, you gotta leave. But, that, as far as the budget would go, it would not affect that at all. But as far, I guess I'm not sure, and these guys would know the percentage of have an officer in the school or not, but as far as money-wise, I don't feel it would cost the county anything that what I was proposing.
It'd be new.
Can I answer both of them? I mean, his first and then come back to yours. First, if you look at the justice statistics, what they show is that when you have an officer involved in the school, more mentoring of the youth and addressing issues of the youth, the level of crime, bullying, etc. in the school is lower. You only have to look as far as St. Cloud to see the actual statistical reflection on it. We have 6 officers assigned in the schools full time. The level of violence and complaints in the schools and the amount of assistance that those officers also give the wayward youth. And what I mean by that is when you have reports of abuse, reports of neglect, it's immediately addressed with the officer in school and social services as a team approach. So there are statistical databases out there. The National Bureau of Justice has most of them that'll tell you the effects that an officer in school provides. What I'd be cautious of is when we talk about DARE. So you kind of asked me both ways about drugs, so I'll answer the DARE side. If you currently look today at the research of what came back federally on DARE programs, they said in essence, we don't know if it works or not, statistically. And the reason they said it is because they came back and they said, we can find no correlation that teaching the DARE, we call it DARE, that's what it was at the time, the DARE program, statistically there was no correlation between kids that were taught DARE and kids that weren't taught DARE in the actual use of marijuana post the teaching of DARE. Matter of fact, there's some research that says we provided too much information. I hate to say it that way, but that we provided too much information about drugs and controlled substances to the youth at too young of an age. As Chuck pointed out, originally DARE was focused, at 5th and 6th grade level, and one of the things that came out of it is that might be too young. Okay? But there are other programs. There's the KEYS program out there. There is Healthy Choices, decision-making for youth that's out there. So the mentorship and pointing them in a positive direction and giving them somebody to talk to additionally to a teacher is really what the Cops and Schools programs are about today. And back to the question on the Sheriff's Office. I would strongly encourage you to start with Mr. Stone. And the reason I say that is, you know, to begin with, from a conflict of interest perspective, he works for Little Falls PD or for Greg, the police chief in Little Falls, so it's two different agencies. Across the board, the key there to me is that, are we talking about perception or reality? And kind of some of the things you mentioned, if we let perception go unchecked long enough, it becomes reality. So the real issue would be, if it was opposite roles. In other words, if you came to me as a parent in Little Falls as the sheriff and you said, you know, my son knows that the police chief's kids are involved in this, I would take the investigation on and I would, quite frankly, probably ship it out of the county. But the reason I take the investigation is twofold. One, we have to be held to a higher platform and a higher standard, whether it's our own children or the community's children, to resolve conflicts of interest within our own. Does that make sense? So it needs to be looked at. Part two of that would be, I'd want initially somebody to sit down with the parent or son or daughter and ascertain some facts. Because we all know kids also have a tendency to come home and what you hear and what they say could be the E.F. Hutton. You know, they heard it from two, who heard it from two, and heard it from two, and so on. So just want to get to the facts first. But if it's really involved law enforcement within Little Falls, I would, with my contacts, I'd send it out of the county. I'd have a conflict of interest with it, and I'd ship the report out to another outside law enforcement agency to do the investigation. You bet.
Could I answer a little bit of the question around, you're working on a task force, and I'm not going to get into statistics just to ignore a lot of people, but we're on a task force, let's face it, I see as much dope in the schools as they do with cops in it as all. We get called to schools to fight them, to fight the drugs. There are laws in schools that we have to abide by that are even tougher than out on the streets. The courts have gotten very restricted of what police can do. In the schools is even stronger yet. We can go in and, like the canine sniffs, we'll bring the dogs into the schools. If we get the sniffs in the lockers, we are very limited on what we can do as far as arresting the student. We normally lend it to leave it up to the teachers. Okay, so what we see is if the kids are going to get it, it's no different than adults. If the kids are going to get it in the schools, they're going to get it in there. Now, that doesn't mean we give up on it. We need to educate the kids. I truly believe in the 7th and 8th grade not to use it. And what it does psychologically and years later in life, what it does to your life as far as your family and your brain. You know, we have all the studies that are very against the marijuana becoming legal. It is proven that as an adolescent, you will lose IQ points of 8 to 10 points. And so if we can prevent them from using it in the beginning, it is all the difference in the world, and that's why I really want to push education. The other thing is we still have to get it out on the streets. If we can get it out of our streets, it's less likely to get into the schools. So by adding another officer and fighting it, you know, we see it in the record, it's a page and a half long of drug crimes. If there was no drug task force working, we wouldn't see any arrests because and then drugs are going to be really prevalent. So I just think education is the key, and whether you have a police officer in the school or not, they're going to be able to get their dope in there. It doesn't mean you can't be more aggressive, get more contacts, more informants if you want them within the school. I would really like to help them get that done. But I just see education as being there.
Anyone else? Yeah, I have a question for Tom. individual question the rest of the cats can answer. Are you afraid that you would become bored in this position? You seem like you come from a big department and you already have way more responsibility than you would have as the sheriff of Morrison County. And I'm afraid that you would almost be like the sheriff of Arpaio of Morrison County, trying to turn our county into the St. Cloud Police Department, which, and you talk about disconnect between the community and the sheriff's department. It's not that, it's the perception, at least out here, is that we're over policed, not that there's not enough. And my next question for kind of everybody is, my understanding is if anybody has a complaint against a deputy or anybody in the sheriff's department, that you actually have to go and sign a complaint to the sheriff's department. If somebody is complaining about Ron tearing up his road down to his place, anybody can make an anonymous call, and then you guys have to follow up on that call. Is that something that we can take care of a lot of the frivolous calls? Because I know you guys have a ton of calls on there. Take care of a lot of the frivolous calls by saying, you know what, if you want to make a complaint against your neighbor, you have to put your name down and be willing to file a complaint. Is that unreasonable?
Ron would not make an anonymous call.
Okay, the first part, absolutely not as far as being bored. Matter of fact, I'll tell you a long story short. 2 years ago, I went and saw Michael and asked him what he was planning to do this term, because I debated 2 years ago to come back and run. And the reason being is, from a career perspective, if you take a look at my resume, you take a look at my credentials, there isn't a lot of law enforcement from the development stage I haven't done. But there are programs here in the county that I would love to implement. One of them being the youth mentorship, and like we do a youth leadership academy for wayward youth. I'd like to tie more into St. Francis. They've got all the prime facilities that Little Falls would ever need in the county from that perspective to bring more youth mentoring, more youth programs into their actual facility. And if you talk to them, they're looking for a long-term legacy. What I see the sheriff being is not just law enforcement, it is the chief public safety official in the county. The countywide safety plan is imperative. The community outreach is imperative. It's not an issue of coming in and sitting back in a chair and being bored. It's the ability to come in with 26 years in the St. Cloud Police Department, 20 of them in command, and implement some programs and make sure it gets done. I would have to disagree actually with your statement about over-policed. I've hit 29 of the township board meetings. I've hit every city council in the county, every school district. The one thing that was a consistent theme in 23 of the 29 townships is they don't see the deputies near as much as they'd like to.
You know, I guess I don't necessarily mean, you know, we all want good deputies, but I wasn't here in the 70s, but I talked to the sheriff who was here in the 70s. He had two people that worked for the sheriff's department, him and a deputy. Now, and there was 30,000 population in the county then. Now we have 32,000 population and probably 75 employees at the sheriff's department. So somewhere there's a disconnect. We probably don't need to go back to 2, but it seems like 75 seems a little extreme for the actual 3,000 population we have here now.
But you realize that of the 70 employees that work at the sheriff's office, only 16 are deputies.
Well, maybe
The
that's what I'm asking. Maybe our priorities are out of whack.
Well, in the sheriff, I mean, and the others can speak to it too. Right now, there's about 70 employees in the sheriff's office. Only 16 are full-time deputies. The rest either work jail, transports, in the kitchen, cooking for the inmates. Remember, the jail was originally built for about 150. There's only 50 inmates in it today. So the staff, you need to remember too, there's state requirements on how many people need to be in a correctional facility based on how many inmates you have. There's all kinds of that plays into it. But I'll go back to the first part. Absolutely not. I'm not afraid of any more of that. As I started out, when I talked to him 2 years ago, my ultimate fear was to file this year against him. It would have probably been a very, very, very expensive proposition, and I don't know if a guy or anybody could have beat his name recognition in the county at this time. But I will tell you, since February, while I've been working out in the county, talking to people, townships, et cetera, there's a lot of people that don't feel the same way you do today about the level of service that they're getting from the sheriff's office, and it's one of the things I want to go in and see what's going on.
So you want to make it bigger and more people?
No, I want to bring a little more change and prioritize the call for service though, that's the first thing. I would intrigue all of you, if you haven't, to read Mickle's annual report from 2013. I've read it front to back, back to front. If you look at the number of calls that the deputies take in this county, they work, but is there more time to reprioritize the work they're doing to put it into more efficient and effective strategies? Yes, from my perspective, there is.
That leads to the second part of my question.
Yes.
Did you catch that part?
Yeah.
About holding the deputies to a lower standard than the general public?
Well, I thought you were directing it to those three.
All of you guys.
The ultimately, my track record proves it. I've dealt with personnel issues that are good. I reward personnel when they're very good at their job.
I'm just asking about the part to actually have people sign a complaint if they have a complaint against somebody, the same as they would have to do for a deputy.
Nichols' policy today does not mandate that. In other words, the sheriff's office policy on personnel complaints does not mandate that people have to walk in and sign.
Okay, well, I was
Can I answer your second part of the question? I think you asked something about if the general public could call in an anonymous complaint, should it be that they actually have to give their name prior to us following up on that? That's a good question, and it happens quite a bit. People call in and they'll wish to remain anonymous. But as a dispatcher, they usually do ask, hey, here's the deal. If you give us your name and your number, you can still remain anonymous, but at least our deputy can give you a call to follow up if they got some more questions. And as far as whether or not that anonymous complaint is important enough to go on, I believe it is. And the reason for it is this. We have a lot of complaints within our county, and some of them seem pretty low priority. But really, you can't say it's low priority until you check it out. What I'm getting at is, I had a complaint not too long ago of a vehicle in the middle of the road that ran out of gas. It's on a township road, and it's in the middle of the day, middle afternoon, sorry. And thinking about it, it's like, well, this person wanted to remain anonymous, but yet the person that ran out of gas already told the complainant, hey, I got help on the way to bring gas. But long story short, went out to check it out. What it was a known burglar in the area that just got done, that just committed a theft prior to me making contact with them, who had burglary tools, etc. inside his vehicle. But I guess what I'm getting at is, you can't really weigh the complaint on anonymous or not, just because some people just don't want to give their information.
That's why they're calling for public service, the guy ran out of gas, isn't it?
Well, and there's other anonymous complaints where someone says, hey, so-and-so's ripping up the road, I don't want to give you my name. Well, that person ripping up the road might be the same person who just committed 3 or 4 burglaries, or maybe he's trucking up. So I think it's all equally important.
I'll just answer a little bit, just going off that. Anonymous complaints, a lot of times, neighbors don't get along. And that's one way for them probably, to call in a complaint against the neighbor. And it does get kind of hairy at times, but I understand where you're coming from, but we still have to, check out the call, and I don't think it would stop any nonsense.
If I read your question right, if I don't, tell me, but basically your question was if we, or the county, or a person in the county would like to make a complaint against a deputy, you have to sign a complaint, you have to come in.
That's why I understood it, but I guess Mr. Johnson said that's not the
Okay,
case.
let's just say, let's answer your question, say that it is that way. And then if we have an anonymous complaint, but you can be anonymous and not have to file it, right? We've had, just being as a sergeant in the police department, we've had complaints against officers. People may not like this, and let's put it bluntly, some may not. So if you're going to call in a complaint and it's going to be anonymous, if you're the investigator that's going to investigate that incident, because each incident should be investigated. We don't have anyone to call back to. We don't have anyone to say, okay, we investigated this officer. Say as he said that you may believe he was speaking. If we don't have anyone to call back to, we're not going to be able to investigate it properly through the channels of investigating an officer like you're bringing up. And it kind of goes with the anonymous calls that you call them. somebody may call in, and I think Dan touched on it a little bit. You can remain anonymous and still make a call, and still have the callback, and Sean may have touched on it. So that if there is more follow-up, kind of the same way, more follow-up so that we can find out if there was more. Call back, say, hey, we talked to him. Did he come back and did he do it again? Say he's tearing up the road like you had said. So you can remain anonymous. We aren't going to give your name out or make you give your name out in a report, but it's just nice to be able to call back and follow up and find out if it was taken care of or if it's going to continue to happen.
To me, it just seems like it turns into we have a whole society of people that won't stand for anything. You know what, if I'm following you down the road and you're swerving all over and I think you're drunk, and I'm gonna call the 911, I'll give you my name and I'll tell the guy that I called on. You know, or if I saw you beating your wife up on the side of the road.
Right.
I'm gonna stop and then I'm gonna tell you that I called the police on you. You know, I guess that's I see the problem with our whole society is people won't stand for it.
Well, the difficulty though you have is you now have United States Supreme Court cases and Minnesota State Supreme Court cases that limit what officers can do with anonymous complaints. See, the difference is, I thought initially you were asking about if a complaint came in on an officer. Nickel has no policy today in the sheriff's office. Now, you can enact one that says it has to be written, but I wouldn't do that. We don't do it in St. Cloud. I hate to speak of St. Cloud, but there's a reason. Because some people are afraid of cops. So it's a case-by-case decision. I've done hundreds of internal investigations on anonymous complaints. You go pull the information just like you would in any other investigation and see what you can get out of it. If it's the complaint of, you know, I'm following a car and they're all over the road and they're going 100 miles an hour, right? If it's a life safety issue, the Supreme Court says, get on it. More power to you, cops can come out. You know what I mean? Should respond to an investigation on it. If it's the fact that you call in anonymously and you say, I just watched a drug deal go down on the corner of 5th Avenue and 1st Street in Little Falls, that doesn't allow an officer to simply drive over and make a stop on fire. Doesn't allow him to do it. Laws are very clear. I agree with somebody earlier that talked about drug training and interdiction. There is no doubt that one thing you also should expect that if I'm elected sheriff is the training budget is what money's got to be brought in, whether it's grant funding or not, to do some more training with all the deputies. Because there only are 16. But I'd ask you to remember there's almost 40 law enforcement officers in the county. There's only 16 in the sheriff's office there.
Anyone else?
I'm Darrell Welly, Ripley Township. My question concerns the jail facility, and I know there's a lot of good programs that are being offered to the inmates. If you're elected sheriff, would you continue to support those programs that are existing now? And would you be interested in bringing other programs in to help rehabilitate the inmates so they don't become more repeat offenders? And whoever wants to start.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're talking about the rec programs currently in place. I currently support that. I think that anytime you bring volunteers coming in to talk to these inmates one-on-one, after they've been locked up for a crime that they committed, it's positive. And I think I mentioned earlier, I think I spoke to you directly on this, that positive interaction, even if you change one inmate's life for the better, then it's well worth the program, in my view. So, as far as the rec program going on, yeah, I would currently support the way it's been going. Other educational programs, absolutely. I know there's a lot of volunteers out there that are more than willing to come into our jail and more than willing to give up, you know, their time and their commitment and what they know as far as different programs that they can bring in. So anything that isn't gonna, you know, jerk our budget one way or the other, and to come in and make a positive reaction or a positive impact to somebody's life, I'd be for it.
I'll just answer that also. I would be the same thing with Sean. I think there's some great programs. I think you can tie that into the chaplaincy also, the chaplain at the County Valentine. He's a great asset to the county. He's not fully funded through the office, but he does get a lot of donations. And I think you can tie him in there, make him, you know, go up there a little more. He can get these groups in, and just one-on-one. I know he does a lot of one-on-one. I think that helps too, because people, you know, sometimes in a group setting won't maybe talk about it much, but one-on-one, I feel they're more open. And I think we could incorporate that a little bit more to get him more involved in jails, and also to keep all the great programs going.
But we're gonna get off the line here, I'll next before you go. What I like to say, and I've talked to citizens in the area of town and watching the parades. I've got to be able to speak to a lot of them, and then after they hang around in their festivals that they're having. And what I see and when I talk to people about inmates, you know, you've got to remember the level of the inmate. If you look and you read stats and you read statistics about who can or can't be rehabilitated, you know, you have your sexual criminals and they're tough to rehab. So I think the level of the criminal that you have, it plays a big part in what program you might bring. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have it. I've talked to some of the priests and the pastors in town, and I believe that a lot of them would love to have to be able to go up there and speak. And like Sean, in the end, if you save one guy, you know, there's inmates I interview every day, you know, whether they're in jail or been out of jail, that are reaching for something maybe that might save them, other than the rehab programs that don't work for them. So I really think to continue and maybe reach out more, get the pastors and the religious out to be able to help the inmates. I'm not saying that we would force it down, but that the ability is there to help them out, because I know they're willing to go in. They just never have had the opportunity to do so. So I would be really willing to do that, for sure.
I just talked to Nicole again about the rec program today. The real issue that he said, you know, is a personnel issue in the jail with resource planning. I completely support it. I've been asked by 4 or 5 people that play in that program, including as Mr. Bukowski. I absolutely would support it. The chaplaincy program, I would plan to expand it. At present, one thing I would agree with is that it could surely be supported better if it was part of the Central Minnesota Chaplaincy Program. It doesn't have to be, but that brings to bear about another 9 chaplains right on the very first signing of an agreement to bring it as part of the chaplaincy program. And then maybe you're not aware of it, but the actual jail is a licensed in-house treatment facility. The key there was the funding. Rule 25 funding takes a long time to catch up when you're trying to do in-house treatment. And that's one of the reasons that they don't have a counselor, they don't have a full-time counselor there anymore, is because funding wouldn't catch up. We had a discussion today, Nicole and I had a discussion on the in-house treatment side of the jail. It's another program that, you know, if you look at the issue of drugs, you can't enforce your way out of drugs. If you couldn't enforce your way out of drugs, prohibition would have worked and nobody drink alcohol today. Drugs is really prevention, education, and enforcement where it needs to be driven. And the education and prevention, a big piece of it is Morrison County's drug court, which started up, and in-house treatment or treatment centers. I believe the faith community that wants to come in and do the rec program with volunteers is a good positive approach to trying to, what do we call it, rehabilitation now, trying to reach out to those that are in need, and maybe it does give them, you know, one more piece to help them stay clean.
Anyone else?
Sorry, Tom, you have that policy manual. Are there any specific policies that Maple Russell has in there that you want to change?
You know what, today I have no comment on his policy now, because there are policies in there that I think need to be updated. Beyond that, it's incumbent upon any sheriff that comes in to take a review of what they believe are the appropriate policies and procedures, but to draft the people you're going to have in-house and help you and assist you develop new policies. In other words, one of the keys there is the chief deputy. One of the other people in that jail, shortly after the first year, Mike Monty, the jail administrator, is leaving next spring. So there's gonna need to be a jail administrator, and the one thing that normally is done in the first 6 months in office is a complete audit of everything and a complete review of the policy manual, so, are there any that I saw glaring that need to be changed? No, not really. Not that I saw in what's available. I also am in the process of reviewing all their contracts, all the employees' contracts, and taking a review of all the county administrative orders that are put out, so. The big key would be for the citizens, you know, I hope all of you do get a chance to go on the website. If this is the annual report, this is what the sheriff puts out every year to tell you what the sheriff's office is doing. How many part 1 crimes, part 2 crimes, miscellaneous offenses that they've done throughout the year. This gives you a pretty good flavor of what I'll call the demand call for service. The stuff that they get sent to by dispatch calls for service, as well as the amount of traffic stops the deputies make, and how many tickets they write versus how many warnings they write versus the water patrol contacts, etc. He does a good job of putting the annual report together. It's a great document for you to review. I would tell you, if I'm elected sheriff, what you should anticipate is across the board a little more effective and efficient, a little more effectiveness and efficiency in the sheriff's office, and a lot more outreach. I've clearly heard the message as I went around the townships and city councils, a little more outreach. It can be done, from my perspective, within the budget that's there today, and within the resource time allocation that's currently being put in on the call for service.
Yes, I have a follow-up. First of all, I'd like to say the response time is absolutely excellent in this county as far as the deputy is concerned. The question would be, and I think the only way to solve a lot of our problems out in the community, if you only have 16 deputies to do this job, is you have to get better acquainted with the people within this county. And part of it is, I will mention the Hillman parade. For years and years, the sheriff led the parade. There was visibility was everything. Then over the years, when we would call for someone to do it, well, they didn't want to walk it anymore, they didn't work that weekend or things like that. Now lately, the last 2-3 years, they have gone with a car and used the bullhorn to keep people back. But I would think that as an individual deputy or sheriff, you can contact a lot of people who make points walking these parades over here, or Ellendale, or Randall, or Motley, or Little Falls, or wherever it happens to be. And we are not going to get that. And the next question, a tag on, would be, we spent an ungodly amount of money in technology. I'm not going to say right, wrong, or anything on that. But would we be better off if we had 10 more deputies? Them are questions for you guys.
Well, I'll answer the briefly. Actually, I think it was last year. I don't know why Sheriff Butzel, I think everybody knows you two kind of had some differences on some different things. And maybe it was a personal reason, I'm not sure. But last year, I know I volunteered to come out and I walked in the parade with my dog for you. And I would definitely keep that tradition going. I mean, I wouldn't have the dog if I was elected, but I mean, I just going through the campaign process right now, just of course going to all the parades, you really do touch a lot of people. And I think it's great. I mean, lots of we go shake hands, but it doesn't hurt the sheriff. I don't feel, won't hurt him a bit to go around and shake hands either, you know, because the sheriff does work for the people. And I feel that if I were elected, I would definitely try to make all the parades I could, or have somebody go, you know, go to them and be seen. Visibility is the biggest thing. What was your second? Oh, technology.
The technology and that's really it's a tough question, but that's a tough job you guys are getting into.
Some of that I think is pushed on us because not only it's a lot, it does cost a lot of money, but for the records management part of it, it takes up no space at the office. You know, everything's on a computer now. That's a sign of the times. You can't stop that, but it's just the way it is, and I don't think we can stop it. I don't think you'd be money ahead by not doing it and hiring 10 more deputies. Because if you do that, then you have just that much more paperwork. So to me, I don't feel there's really nothing you can do with technology. I think we should actually maybe catch up, you know, you gotta stay with it, otherwise if you get behind, you know how it is, if you get an old computer, then it's that much slower. It's the sign of the times, and like it or not.
I'm not advocating more deputies, but I do think we have to get away from a whole page in the paper every week of all the crimes that are committed. That's what I'm doing. And I'm looking for some type of a solution. And I don't have an argument with Michael Wetzel, we have discussions, but I have never looked at the paper, the one that talks about that more, and it was listen. Bill, I have no quarrel with Michael Wetzel.
One thing I would like to talk a little bit about, that kind of answers your question a little bit, and I've been talking to the township boards. You know, as a drug investigator for the last 10 years, and some of it beyond, you know, some of our best resources are asking farmers help. And asking, did you see this car? Did you see this meth lab? Did you see this meth lab alongside the road? Now, we don't have meth labs much anymore. The state legislature has passed some good legislation on pseudoephedrine tablets. But what we need to do is get back to a little bit of old-time policing and talk to the people in the county. It's something that farmers and residents just don't do. They don't call in trouble sometimes. We need to openly communicate, go out and find it, talk to the people. I think we can solve or help solve a lot more crime, whether it's burglaries, thieves, if we go out and talk to people and communicate. Same thing with the parades. Get out there, communicate, find the pulse of the people. That's how you're going to solve crimes. And you can be walking in a parade, I said a white man sitting in the house. That might be all you need to break a case. So I just think communication all the way around can be a lot better.
The publicity issue, when the Little Falls Chamber had their meeting about helping communities, one of the things that's clear, I was born and raised in the county, and I open that paper and see it too. The bother with it is, you know, the county, if you want a reputation of being a drug county and a bunch of drunk drivers, keep putting a page and a half of it in the Morrison County Record, and every industry that wants to come to the county, trust me, the first things they do, they read your paper and they check out your school districts. If you want to attract industry and you want to attract more people into the county, bring industry, you got a clean vote. You got to have great academics, great educational institutions, and you can't continue to run. We arrested, you know, the 18-year-old for minor consumption. Not saying that that's not free press information and couldn't be on a website, couldn't be posted on the sheriff's website, but to keep putting it in the paper without equaling it out on the 1 to 10 rule with some positive interaction over and over and over again leads to a perception that this county is what? A bunch of dopers and a bunch of drunks. I mean, I'm talking to the people here. It's clearly what I've heard in all the townships, the school districts, etc. I played with it for 8 years on the school board. The same thing. How do you clean up your image? Start in journalism. Clean up your image. That's the big way to deal with it with the press side, at least from my perspective. The number of deputies, what I would tell you needs to be done is a strategic plan for the resource allocation to take the county and an estimation of where the sheriff's office should be and what it should be doing 20 years from now. There's a lot of look inside the sheriff's office today at what we're doing today, and let's just tweak a little bit about what we're doing today, and we'll be good. No, we won't. I'm here to tell you, heroin will be an epidemic in this county in the next 2 to 4 years. Somebody in a leadership role needs to step in and get it moving in a direction to at least try to get ahead of the game. And the way to do that is youth intervention and education of parents. And that's the outreach I'm talking about. A body on the task force, not going to solve the problems. Spend that 2,080 hours of resource time educating the kids and the parents on what to look for, how to look for it, and what to do about it, and you'll have a much greater impact. There's all kinds of statistical information that tells you 1 in 6 kids that smokes marijuana will try a higher illicit drug. The ultimate goal there would be education and prevention, so we go from 1 to 6 to 1 to 8, or 1 to 10. That's ultimately where my vision on community outreach takes us. Do more with the kids at a younger age to prevent. That's really where it's at.
I'd like to say that heroin epidemic is already here. we're not waiting for the 4 years this year, right? And, you know, like you said, and I agree with you, we have to reach out to the kids and get it before they get it. But I also believe, you know, if you don't have task force officers or officers trained to fight it, it's not gonna get stopped. And if it's a free will to come into the city with no hesitancy, because there's no cops to prevent it, I just feel that, we're being really full.
Ron, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna answer the question. I'm the only one that didn't answer it yet, so. As far as the parades go, I mean, I don't wanna tell you what you wanna hear, I'm just gonna be honest with you. You got Randall and you got Hillman going on at the same time. If I was fortunate enough to be sheriff, I would alternate, because I wanna make sure that I'm in each parade. However, that doesn't mean I cannot place a designee sheriff's deputy to go through the Hillman parade every year. So there would be somebody here every year. As far as the second question goes, the technology, you know, do we continue on technology or do we get more deputies? The only thing I would address on that, you know, is we share a server with Little Falls Police Department. There's a lot of different departments now that share data information. So if I was to come across a vehicle and type in their plate, now I'm gonna get an alert whether or not this person's armed and dangerous, or, you know, I'll get a little bit of background on them. So to me, the technology thing is important, and it's something that we just gotta keep up with the times. The third thing was getting rid of the crime page. I disagree. I think, yeah, you see a lot of things in there, but yet I hear from a lot of citizens, it's like a 50-50, if you're Democrat or Republican. I hear a lot of people, a lot of citizens that like to know what's going on, and they like to be aware of what the locations are and what's going on in their community. I do agree that with the presence of deputies, early intervention in schools, drug education, and you know, educating the community and parents as well, that we can get this message across, and hopefully we can start to slow that process down so there's not as many cases.
I didn't want you to take it that I was speaking just for Hillman. I was speaking as a whole. I don't care if it's Morrison, Buckland, or Elmdale, or wherever it happens to be. I think we really need visibility, especially when there's large crowds. Not this, I just do Hillman.
Can I use one point specific to Hillman? One of my first conversations was with your bar owner, Sandy, many months ago now. And what I committed to her is this. I asked how many deputies have ever stopped in here and had lunch? None. But she sees deputies routinely on a Friday night. Or a trooper, or here. And my concern with that was, what's the message we're trying to send about? Wouldn't it make nice stuff? I mean, years ago, take it back 30 years, because I've been doing it almost that long. 30 years ago, if you saw deputies start at the bar, the first thing the general public thought was, they're in there getting twisted. Trust me, that's what it was. Today's world, I'm convinced, why doesn't a deputy stop and have a hamburger at the Hilltop at lunchtime on a day of the week? But it's not happening. If I'm your sheriff, that'll happen.
But as a bartender myself, then people, when they see a cop come in the bar, they're afraid. They don't want to leave that bar once they've been drinking, because they sit around the corner. And they do.
Which are you telling me they're being harassed by the deputies, or the deputies are doing their job?
I say harassed.
I'm asking.
That's what I'm saying.
I've heard from other bar owners in the county in my walks and talks that they believe they're specifically being targeted by the